For thousands of years, this fed human beings through winter's droughts and collapse, and today it is dismissed as outdated, inconvenient, or simply irrelevant. Modern society believes it has solved the problem of survival. We trust emergency rations sealed in plastic food designed in laboratories, calories measured, stamped, and dated. We believe security comes from warehouses, factories, and electricity. Yet before refrigeration, before packaging, before global supply chains, people survived on something far simpler. There exists a fruit that does not rot when fully ripe. Instead, it dries, not in an oven, not in the sun after harvest. It dries naturally while still hanging on the branch. No electricity, no preservation process, no human intervention. To the modern eye, this looks like failure. A wrinkled fruit signals decay. In a grocery store, it would be thrown away. But historically, this transformation marked the moment it became most valuable. When it dried, it concentrated sugars, stabilized moisture, and became shelf-stable for months, sometimes longer. This fruit was not eaten for pleasure, it was eaten for continuity. When crops failed, when winters were long, when supply routes disappeared, it remained. Families harvested it by the thousands, stored it without fear, and lived on it until spring returned. Today, preparedness is marketed as something you buy. But for most of human history, preparedness grew quietly in the soil. It did not depend on factories continuing to run or systems staying intact. It depended on biology doing what it has always done. And that raises an uncomfortable question. If such a food existed and still exists, why did we stop growing it? Preparedness in the modern world looks sophisticated, but it is fragile. It is built on layers of assumptions that rarely get questioned. Electricity will always be there. Trucks will keep running. Factories will keep producing. Warehouses will stay stocked. When people talk about emergency food today, they are really talking about industrial continuity. The shelves are filled with freeze-dried meals, vacuum-sealed bars, plastic buckets stamped with expiration dates. They promise safety measured in months and years, as long as nothing interrupts the system that created them. Yet every one of these solutions depends on something external continuing to function. Power grids, transportation networks, manufacturing plants. Even knowledge itself is outsourced, locked inside supply chains most people never see. For an older generation, this dependence should feel familiar. Many lived through moments when systems failed without warning. Oil shortages, blackouts, empty shelves. The quiet realization that money could not buy what did not exist. In those moments, security was never about branding or packaging. It was about what you already had when the trucks stopped coming. Historically, true preparedness was not stored in basements. It was embedded in landscapes. Food did not arrive shrink-wrapped with instructions. It grew slowly, predictably, and required no external permission to exist. When winter arrived, survival was not activated by opening a box. It was already in place. This difference matters. Modern emergency rations are designed for convenience, not resilience. They are optimized for transport, shelf life under controlled conditions, and mass distribution. They are not designed to exist independently of civilization. If the systems that produce them fail, they cannot reproduce themselves. Once consumed, they are gone. In contrast, traditional survival foods were not consumables alone. They were processes. They renewed themselves year after year, quietly, without supervision. They did not ask whether conditions were ideal. They adapted to what was available. This is where the contradiction begins to surface. The more technologically advanced preparedness becomes, the more dependent it is on the very systems it claims to protect against. And the foods that once functioned outside those systems were gradually labeled primitive, inefficient, or obsolete. Not because they stopped working, but because they worked too well without us. The Jujube enters this story not as a product, but as a biological anomaly. It behaves in a way that contradicts nearly everything modern consumers believe about fruit. When it reaches full ripeness, it does not soften and collapse. It does not ferment. It does not invite rot. Instead, it begins to lose moisture in a controlled, gradual process while still attached to the branch. To someone trained by supermarkets, this looks like neglect. Wrinkling is associated with decay. Shrinking is associated with loss. But in the Jujube, this transformation is not a failure state. It is a designed outcome. As water content decreases, sugars concentrate. The fruit becomes denser, more stable, and far less hospitable to mold or bacteria. What appears to be aging is in reality preservation. No external energy is required. No drying racks, no smoke, no salt, no sun trays laid out after harvest. The tree itself regulates the process. The fruit remains suspended in open air, protected by its skin, gradually transitioning from fresh to shelf-stable without crossing into spoilage. In practical terms, this means the moment of harvest is flexible. The fruit can be picked crisp and apple-like, or left to dry naturally until it becomes chewy, sweet, and durable. Historically, this mattered more than taste. A food that spoils on a fixed timeline creates urgency. It must be eaten processed or discarded quickly. A food that stabilizes itself creates choice. It allows people to wait. It allows storage without anxiety. It allows survival without constant intervention. This behavior placed the Jujube in a category few modern foods occupy. It was not simply fresh produce, and it was not preserved food in the conventional sense. It existed in between. It moved from one state to another without human labor, without fuel, without tools. For communities living close to the edge of seasonal uncertainty, this difference was profound. The modern food system has no framework for this. Industrial preservation assumes decay is inevitable and must be fought aggressively with technology. Refrigeration slows it. Freezing halts it. Chemical preservatives suppress it. The Jujube bypasses this entire battle. It does not fight decay. It sidesteps it through structure. This is why it feels unintuitive today. It does not behave like fruit is supposed to behave. It refuses to conform to the visual language of freshness we have been taught to trust. In doing so, it reveals how narrow that language has become. What once signaled readiness is now mistaken for ruin. And a food that solved preservation quietly without infrastructure was gradually pushed out of a system that learned to value control over resilience. Long before modern borders, before refrigeration, before written supply contracts, the Jujube was already embedded in survival strategy. In ancient China, it was not treated as a novelty fruit or a seasonal indulgence. It was classified alongside staple crops that determined whether populations endured or collapsed. This was not symbolic, it was practical. The regions where Jujube spread naturally were not gentle landscapes. The Yellow River Basin was prone to drought, erratic flooding, and long winters. Annual crops failed regularly. Wheat could wither. Millet could burn in the heat. When that happened, survival depended on what remained standing when everything else disappeared. The Jujube tree did not follow the same rules as field crops. Its roots reached deeper, tapping water sources inaccessible to shallow plants. Its growth cycle was patient, and when conditions turned hostile, it continued producing fruit that did not demand immediate consumption. Communities harvested Jujube by the thousands, often leaving them to finish drying naturally before storage. The result was food that could be stockpiled without fear of rapid loss. Historical records describe periods when entire villages relied on dried Jujube to bridge the gap between harvests. This was not emergency relief in the modern sense, it was continuity. The fruit provided calories, stability, and predictability when uncertainty dominated daily life. It required no milling, no cooking infrastructure, and no complex preparation. It could be eaten as it was. As trade expanded, the Jujube traveled west along what later became known as the Silk Road. It reached the Mediterranean, where it was cultivated in parts of southern Europe. Roman writers noted it as a durable fruit often dried for winter use, in the same way dates were used in arid regions. Its value was understood not through luxury but through reliability. What made the Jujube exceptional was not abundance during good years. Many plants can produce generously when conditions are favorable. Its true value emerged when conditions turned against human planning. During famine, during drought, during cold seasons when fields lay empty, the Jujube remained present. It did not promise abundance, it promised survival. This is why it mattered historically. Not because it tasted better than other fruits, but because it reduced risk. It transformed uncertainty into something manageable. In societies where a single failed harvest could mean displacement or death, that distinction was everything. Over time, as agriculture shifted toward uniformity and speed, foods like the Jujube began to lose their place. Their advantages were subtle, visible only under pressure. And as pressure seemed to disappear, so did the memory of why those advantages once mattered. When modern emergency rations are placed beside the Jujube, the contrast is not about nutrition alone. It is about dependency. Emergency food today is designed as a product. It is manufactured, packaged, transported, and sold within a tightly controlled system. Its promise of security is conditional. It works as long as every upstream process continues to function. Freeze-dried meals depend on factories that remove moisture using energy-intensive processes. Protein bars rely on industrial ingredients sourced from multiple continents. Even canned food, often considered simple, requires steel production sterilization facilities and continuous logistical support. These foods are durable, but they are not autonomous. Once consumed, they cannot replace themselves. Their existence ends at the point of use. The Jujube operates under a different logic. It is not produced, it is grown. It does not arrive with an expiration date because its preservation is biological rather than mechanical. When harvested in its dried state, it requires no additional processing. It does not need to be sealed, frozen, or monitored. Its shelf life is flexible, shaped by environment rather than regulation. This difference becomes critical under stress. Emergency rations are optimized for scenarios where disruption is temporary. They assume a return to normal, power will be restored, supply lines will resume, production will restart. The Jujube assumes none of this. It exists as if interruption is permanent or at least unpredictable. It does not require a restart. There is also the question of scale. Emergency food is centralized. It is made in specific places and distributed outward. The Jujube is decentralized. Each tree is a point of production and storage combined. It does not rely on coordination across distance. In historical terms, this reduced vulnerability. A failure in one location did not collapse the entire system. Modern preparedness culture often frames survival as something that can be purchased quickly, a one-time transaction. But historically, survival was cumulative. It was built over time through living systems that renewed themselves. The Jujube was part of that logic. It was not an item to be consumed and forgotten. It was a presence that returned every year, quietly reinforcing continuity. The comparison is uncomfortable because it exposes a shift in thinking. Emergency rations offer reassurance through control and packaging. The Jujube offered reassurance through persistence. One depends on technology behaving perfectly, the other depends on biology doing what it has always done. In calm conditions, the difference feels academic. Under pressure, it becomes decisive. And yet the food that requires the least from civilization was the one most easily abandoned when civilization appeared stable. The disappearance of the Jujube from modern food systems was not the result of a single decision. It was the outcome of a gradual shift in what agriculture was designed to serve. As food production moved toward scale speed and uniform appearance, plants were no longer valued for how they performed under stress. They were valued for how well they moved through machines. The Jujube failed this test quietly. Its fruit does not ripen all at once. Its most valuable stage does not look appealing by modern standards. Wrinkling, which once signaled readiness, became visually associated with decay. In a marketplace trained to equate freshness with shine and tight skin, the Jujube appeared defective at the very moment it was most useful. Supermarkets require predictability. They require fruits that can be harvested on schedule, packed uniformly, and displayed without confusing the customer. The Jujube resists this logic. It ripens gradually. It asks the grower to wait. It refuses to look perfect when it is finished. These traits do not translate well to retail shelves designed for rapid turnover and impulse buying. Profit models reinforced this exclusion. Foods that require processing create industries. They generate packaging, transportation, storage, and branding. The Jujube bypasses much of this. When a food preserves itself, there is little value to add. There is no urgent need for refrigeration preservatives or complex handling. From an industrial perspective, it is inefficient, not because it fails, but because it succeeds too completely on its own. Mechanization further narrowed what could survive. Crops that could be harvested by machines replaced those that required selective picking or patience. Uniformity became a requirement. The Jujube, with its variability in size, shape, and timing, did not fit easily into automated systems. Over time, it was classified as impractical rather than resilient. Language played a role as well. Foods that did not align with modern expectations were labeled old-fashioned, primitive, or niched. The Jujube was no longer framed as a solution to scarcity. It was framed as a curiosity. Once that shift occurred, knowledge about its purpose faded. A survival food became a specialty item and then a forgotten one. This is how effective solutions often disappear. Not because they stop working, but because the environment they were designed for is declared obsolete. As long as abundance appears guaranteed, the value of resilience is easy to overlook. And so a fruit that once reduced risk across entire regions was quietly removed from the systems that no longer measured risk the same way. The ability of the Jujube to preserve itself is not accidental, and it is not mystical. It is the result of a specific biological structure that modern food systems rarely account for because it does not require intervention. As the fruit matures, its internal chemistry shifts in a way that limits decay rather than accelerating it. As moisture slowly leaves, the fruit sugar concentration rises. This alone changes the microbial environment. Many molds and bacteria require higher water activity to grow. The Jujube gradually moves outside that range while still attached to the tree. At the same time, the skin of the fruit remains intact, acting as a natural barrier that slows further moisture loss and blocks external contamination. The process is controlled, not abrupt. Unlike artificial drying, which forces water out quickly and often damages structure, the Jujube transitions at its own pace. This matters. Rapid dehydration can create microfractures that invite spoilage. Slow dehydration stabilizes the fruit from the inside outward. The result is a food that becomes denser and more durable, without becoming brittle or biologically dead. There is also the role of naturally occurring compounds. Jujube fruit contains organic acids and phytochemicals that inhibit microbial growth. These compounds are not added. They are not extracted. They exist because the plant evolved in environments where losing a crop to rot would have been catastrophic. Preservation was not optional, it was built in. From a scientific perspective, what the Jujube achieves is a balance point. Moisture is reduced enough to prevent rapid spoilage, but not so much that the fruit becomes inert. This is why dried Jujube retains flavor, texture, and nutritional value far longer than many fruits processed through industrial methods. It is not frozen in time. It is stabilized. Modern preservation technology assumes food is fragile and must be protected aggressively. Refrigeration, freezing, and chemical additives are all responses to that assumption. The Jujube challenges it. It demonstrates that some foods were never fragile to begin with. They were designed to endure variability rather than be shielded from it. This kind of durability does not register easily in a system that measures success by speed and volume. It only reveals its value when conditions fluctuate, when humidity changes, when storage is imperfect, when time stretches longer than expected. Under those circumstances, the Jujube does not require correction. It remains what it was designed to be. The science does not point to a miracle. It points to something more uncomfortable. That resilience can exist without control, and that some solutions function best when humans step aside. In an age that equates safety with intervention, a food that stabilizes itself quietly feels out of place, and yet this quiet stability is exactly what made it indispensable when nothing else could be trusted. To understand the relevance of the Jujube today, it helps to imagine conditions that many people assume belong to the past. Extended power outages, interrupted fuel supplies, winters where transportation slows or stops entirely. These are not speculative scenarios. They have occurred repeatedly within living memory, and they are becoming more frequent as systems grow more complex. In these situations, the psychological dimension of food becomes as important as the physical one. Hunger creates urgency, but uncertainty creates anxiety. Modern emergency food addresses calories, but it rarely addresses reassurance. It sits in storage, waiting to be opened, counting down its usefulness from the moment it is purchased. The Jujube offered a different kind of security. It did not sit hidden, waiting for permission to be used. It existed in plain sight, growing through the seasons. Its presence reduced anxiety before crisis ever arrived. When winter came or power failed, there was no decision to activate a backup plan. The plan was already alive. For older generations, this distinction resonates. Many remember a time when food security was not abstract. Gardens mattered, trees mattered. What grew on your land mattered. The Jujube fit into that mindset naturally. It was not a symbol of preparedness. It was preparedness. During prolonged disruptions, routine collapses first. The absence of light refrigeration and predictable resupply erodes confidence quickly. A food that does not depend on those things stabilizes more than the body. It stabilizes the mind. Knowing that something reliable remains regardless of conditions changes how people respond to stress. This is where the Jujube's value becomes difficult to quantify, but easy to feel. It does not promise abundance in crisis. It promises continuity. It removes one variable from an already unstable equation. In historical contexts, this reduced panic. In modern contexts, it offers something similar, even if the language has changed. The irony is that as preparedness has become more commercialized, it has also become more distant. Security is something stored elsewhere behind lids and labels. The Jujube represents an older logic, one where resilience was visible, seasonal, and embedded in everyday life, rather than reserved for emergencies. In a grid-down scenario, what matters most is not what performs best in a controlled test. It is what continues to function when control disappears. The Jujube was shaped by that reality. It does not require reassurance from systems that may or may not return. It simply continues. And in doing so, it reframes preparedness not as a reaction to fear, but as a quiet, ongoing relationship with stability itself. At this point, the question is no longer academic. It is personal. Imagine a winter where the power stays off for weeks. Transportation slows. Stores ration what little remains. You open your pantry and see shelves of packaged food that can only move in one direction. Once eaten, it is gone. No renewal, no return. Now imagine a different scene. Outside, a tree stands exactly where it stood the year before. Its fruit has already done what it was designed to do. It has dried, stabilized, and waited. There is nothing to activate, nothing to open, nothing to count down. The food exists whether you need it today or next month. This is not about which option tastes better or looks more modern. It is about which one changes how you think when uncertainty stretches longer than planned. One approach asks you to trust systems staying intact. The other asks you to trust biology continuing to function. So here is the choice. If you believe a living food source that renews itself, provides real security, write the number 9 in the comments. If you disagree, if you believe modern emergency food is the better answer, press like to register that disagreement. Either way, the decision says more about how you understand preparedness than any product label ever could. And if you want to keep exploring the knowledge that fed people long before modern systems existed, subscribe to the channel. This work continues. What the Jujube ultimately reveals is not a flaw in modern technology, but a blind spot in modern thinking. We learned to solve problems by adding layers of control, layers of processing, layers of dependency. In doing so, we quietly dismissed solutions that worked without any of those layers. Not because they failed, but because they did not fit the direction we were moving. For most of human history, food security was not an abstract concept discussed during emergencies. It was a daily condition shaped by what endured when plans failed. The Jujube belonged to that world. It asked for patience instead of precision. It rewarded continuity instead of speed. It did not demand attention branding or constant intervention. It simply remained available. The disappearance of this kind of knowledge was not accidental. As abundance became centralized, resilience became invisible. The skills and plants that mattered most during disruption seemed unnecessary during stability. Over time, they were labeled inefficient, outdated, or irrelevant. And once that language took hold, the memory of why they mattered faded with it. Recovering this knowledge is not about rejecting modern systems. It is about recognizing their limits. No system, no matter how advanced, removes uncertainty. It only relocates it. The Jujube reminds us that some answers to uncertainty were solved long ago, not with machines, but with living systems designed to operate under stress. This is the purpose of returning to stories like this. Not nostalgia, not romanticism, preparation. The kind that does not announce itself and does not expire. The kind that grows quietly season after season, asking very little in return. If this way of thinking resonates, subscribe to the channel. We are not searching for the newest solutions. We are recovering the ones that endured when nothing else could. One plant at a time, one forgotten system at a time, we are rebuilding an understanding of security that does not disappear when the lights go out.